All right, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Ed Sellich, president of Speak Up Newport. Welcome to Speak Up Newport's second webinar. We had to cancel our normal April 8th program due to the coronavirus pandemic. However, the Speak Up Newport board wanted to continue the 39-year tradition of presenting monthly programs of community interest, so we decided to give this a try on April 30th, and it seemed to work pretty good, so we decided to give it another try. Our first webinar was a community update by Hoag Hospital on the coronavirus situation. If you missed it and would like to see it, you can go to our website, www.speakupnewport.com, to view it. Speak Up Newport's your community forum for discussion of civic issues. We sponsor 10 programs a year. The annual Mayor's Dinner in 2021 will be our 40th year. And also we award 4 $3,000 scholarships to Corona Del Mar and Newport Harbor seniors each year. Now this afternoon, we have a two-part program on coronavirus law enforcement issues, including coronavirus scams. Part one will be with Orange County District Attorney Todd Spitzer and Deputy District Attorney Leslie Young, followed by questions and answers. Part two will be with Newport Beach Police Chief Jon Lewis, again followed by questions and answers. If you want to ask a question, please click on the chat button at the bottom of your screen and type in a question. You can do that at any time during each of the two program parts. And now I would like to introduce our moderator, council member, former mayor, and Speak Up Newport board member, Diane Dixon. Diane?
Well, thank you, Ed, and welcome everyone, and welcome all to Speak Up Newport's Zoom Town Hall. So we have a full program, so let's begin. I'm honored and pleased to introduce Todd Spitzer, who has dedicated his life to keeping families safe and was inspired to dedicate his career to public service. He has a long resume. I can't go through it all, but he's been an Orange County supervisor, a former California State Assembly member, and now elected in 2018, our county's district attorney. He is the champion for public safety. District Attorney Spitzer is recognized as an expert on security issues, and he has a reputation as an advocate for victims' rights, and he's respected nationally for that. Mr. Spitzer chaired a groundbreaking campaign for Proposition 9, Marsy's Law, the nation's most comprehensive Victims' Bill of Rights, and served as state co-chair for Proposition 83, the nation's toughest sex offender punishment and control law, as well as Proposition 69, which requires the collection of DNA samples from all felons. The Orange County DA's office has been aggressively investigating price gouging and other COVID-19 related scams to ensure that consumers are being protected during the current global pandemic. Exploiting fear and panic is not a defense to engaging in criminal activity. DA Todd Spitzer and Assistant District Attorney Leslie Young will discuss how the District Attorney's Office is protecting consumers during this unprecedented time and educate residents on what they can do to prevent themselves from being victimized by scammers. The Orange County DA's office is dedicated to investigating and prosecuting persons or businesses who engage in unfair, unlawful, or deceptive business practices. And the nationally known Consumer Fraud Unit also prosecutes cases investigated by state agencies charged with enforcing state laws designed to protect consumers. Let me introduce Assistant District Attorney Leslie Young. She is the head of Major Fraud, Consumer Fraud, and Environmental Fraud units of the Orange County DA's office, and she oversees approximately 17 attorneys. She has been an Orange County prosecutor for 23 years, and she is a graduate of USC's Gould School of Law and the proud mom of 4 teenagers. So let me introduce our DA, and we're proud to have you both here. So let the program begin. It's yours. Thank you, Mr. Spitzer.
Oh, you're so kind. Oh, thank you so much, council member. It's so great to be here with Ed and your police chief, and of course, Leslie, who's just been a phenomenal assistant district attorney for Orange County. You know, before we kind of get into the particulars of, price gouging and people who have taken advantage of others during this pandemic, I just want to personally commend the residents of Orange County. In the past, I don't know, what is it, but been a couple weeks, especially after the governor came out after Orange County in particular. I just want to let you know that in the early stages of this pandemic, which is going on about 60 days, give or take, we've seen in general just very, very good behavior on behalf of those individuals here in Orange County and even visitors to Orange County. I think that's based upon a couple things. First of all, I think just the fact that our residents are just excellent citizens and they behave themselves. They've experienced and they've implemented social distancing. They understand the parameters of what it means to be in public. And I think our citizens have been very, very responsible. Number two, the police have done an outstanding job. As you know, in, say, for example, Los Angeles, in that particular jurisdiction, they've issued citations. They've kind of come down with a very, very hard hammer on their citizenry. And I think to the credit of our chief here in Newport Beach, the other chiefs around the county, as well as the sheriff, we made it very, very clear from the beginning that we were going to seek cooperation. And we never wanted to prosecute people in general for their behavior unless they exceeded the, kind of the bounds of decency. And for the most part, we really, really haven't seen that. So I'm just incredibly proud of the law enforcement community and the elected officials, the Newport Beach City Council, and how it's conducted itself during this pandemic and in its interaction with the governor with respect to beach closures and the like. I'm just really proud to call myself an Orange County citizen and to be your district attorney. Leslie will get into kind of the more technical issues of the law. I can explain that, but I want you to know that when the pandemic first hit, it was very important for me to send out a strong message that we were not going to tolerate exploitation here in the county. And the law is very interesting because if you were an existing retailer of a particular commodity like toilet paper or wipes or something that became scarce, masks. In fact, I have mine right here, this thing that now we're all going to have to start getting used to wearing. Then if you were in that business of selling that before the pandemic, state law said that you had the ability to raise your prices not to exceed 10% of what the price was before the pandemic. What we saw is that people started to get into business as basically entrepreneurs. They were never in the business before, but they saw an ability to, say, sell a mask that costs 97 cents or $1. As I'm driving to work, I would see people in the middle of the intersection in the center median holding up masks, selling them for $10. Well, depending on the mask and how it's made and things like that, on its face, that seems like it's excessive. The interesting thing about the law is that if you were engaged in that business before and you raise your price more than 10%, we could investigate that. And if you weren't paying more for that commodity after the pandemic, Leslie again can explain the specifics, then we couldn't prosecute you. Or we could prosecute you, if you were in that business and you exceeded price by 10%. If you weren't in that business before, but you became an entrepreneur to exploit the public, you basically got a free pass because there was a loophole in the law. We are now, Senator Tom Umberg from Garden Grove, he is now carrying that bill to close that loophole in the state legislature. So we're working on closing that loophole for any future incident where, not if we have a pandemic, but if we have any emergency. One of the things that we all have to understand is that criminals are always going to try to take advantage of us, whether it's through going online and threatening us with an email that tells us that if we don't go and pay $2,000 in Bitcoin, they're going to expose us on the internet to, some photos they have of us or things like that. We had those crimes before the pandemic. What I want you to appreciate and understand is that nothing takes the place of our common sense. So if somebody is out there trying to exploit you, you need to look at that for what it is. And if you think that somebody is engaged in criminal activity, you need to notify the police department. And what we did is we set up a hotline. I'll give you the number now. It's 714-834-3482. And if you forget it, all you have to do is Google either my name or our website is orangecountyda.com. And all that information is on the county DA website. But we set up a team of investigators who went out and looked at complaints. So let me give you an example of what we got as a complaint from the news media, but it turned out not to be a crime. So a local convenience store was charging $2.99 for toilet paper. So we went out to the location and we looked. And the fact of the matter is the local convenience store was always charging $2.99 for toilet paper. The only reason you've noticed that now is because you're in stores looking at or looking for toilet paper and seeing the price and saying, oh my goodness, at Costco, when I buy 50 rolls, it turns out to be 50 cents a roll. Why? And they must be price gouging. Well, they were always charging that price. And as I told you, if they were charging that price before the emergency, they can't be prosecuted. So for some people, it's been very frustrating. For some people, it's been very eye-opening. But for the most part, I think it has been very, very eye-opening. I think Leslie can correct me if I'm wrong. I think we've received about 300 inquiries. And I don't think to date we've investigated, but I don't think we've opened a prosecution. And that's one, because mostly people have been complying with the law. And number two, prices have been high in some locations we just never noticed before. And before I turn it over to Leslie, I will say this about our merchants and our retailers. They have an absolute right to be frustrated. The public has an absolute right to be frustrated. And I've always anticipated that if this stay-at-home order had continued on ad infinitum, that people were going to basically open businesses in direct contradiction or contravention of the state order or a local order. You even seen our Board of Supervisors support Nomads in San Clemente, a restaurant that opened basically in defiance of the governor's order. We are entrepreneurs in Orange County. We respect business. We are people who are hardworking and want to earn a living and don't want government to, give us a paycheck. We want to have our own paychecks. And that's what I really respect and admire about our county. And my job as DA has been to send a message, look, I am not going to go out and support prosecution of people who are just trying to support their families, and they're trying to do good and be good citizens. And we're only going to be there for the most serious and dire examples. And so far, quite frankly, we haven't seen that because of the good work and I think the good behavior of our citizens. So Leslie, why don't you fill in how badly did I botch my presentation of the law? And then maybe you could just fill in, if you wouldn't mind, just some of the things we've been working on and kind of fill people on what we've been doing.
I'd be happy to. Thank you so much, Todd. It is my honor and privilege to be here today, and it's my honor to work for the Orange County District Attorney's Office and to serve as the leader of the Consumer Protection Unit. Todd actually explained it perfectly, so I'll go into a little bit more detail, but essentially, Todd had the foresight of setting up the hotline for the Orange County District Attorney's Office coronavirus scam hotline. And we have, as he said, received over 300 calls and complaints through that hotline. We also have it on our website, so you can submit it through the website or by calling the hotline. But we have investigated every single one of those calls, and we have contacted countless businesses in the process of investigating each of those complaints. What we have found overwhelmingly is that the businesses in Orange County want to comply with the law. And when we contact them, they are cooperative and they provide us the information that we need to complete our investigation. And in most circumstances, we have been able to determine that there in fact was no violation of the price gouging law. Our businesses in Orange County that have been in business for some period of time have provided us all of the information that we've asked for. And so one of the misconceptions, I think, is that people see these prices going up and they don't understand what Penal Code Section 396 really says. And so it's important to understand that we have to look at if the costs of doing business have gone up, then the retailer is entitled to increase their costs. The law sets an upper ceiling of 10% increase in costs during the pandemic, but if the costs for that retailer have increased, for example, if they've had to pay additional shipping costs, or if their labor costs have increased, then the prices may go up more than 10%. And so we have consumers who, in good faith, see those costs going up. They contact us and ask us to look into it, and we are happy to look into each and every one of those complaints. And again, we're finding in the vast majority of those cases, it's truly a misunderstanding about what price gouging is, and we're able to investigate that and close out many of those complaints. So we look forward to continuing to respond to every complaint that we get on that hotline. And just so that you know, we work very closely with a variety of other agencies investigating these complaints. So we have not only received price gouging complaints, we have also received complaints about test kits, and then we've also received complaints about some, potential fake cures that people are offering for COVID-19. And of course, it's important to know that at this point, there is no cure for COVID-19. So anyone who is offering for sale something that they're claiming will cure COVID-19, that's a fake, and that's something that we would be happy to investigate and to prosecute. So we work very closely with the FDA, with the Orange County Healthcare Agency, with a variety of other agencies as well, the California Department of Public Health. We have been in contact with these people at these various agencies on a daily basis throughout the past 2 months during this COVID crisis. And we have received so much cooperation from all of the agencies that we've contacted, including the local police agencies that are investigating many of the crimes relating to the COVID crisis. So in addition to working with our sister agencies, we are also having a lot of success in handling these complaints and in getting cooperation from the various people selling items. I would say that the vast majority of the complaints that we're getting are in fact relating to just the prices of consumer goods and items for sale. But we are also really busy with looking into claims about potential cures and testing for COVID-19. So those are some of the things that we've been very busy with. And as Todd mentioned, we're also now co-sponsoring legislation. Todd has co-sponsored legislation with Senator Umberg to close the loophole that he talked about. And I'll just mention that the way that loophole is going to be closed is that the new sellers who would jump into the market for the purpose of making money during a pandemic, selling an item that they had not previously sold. As Todd mentioned, previously under Penal Code Section 396, there was a hole there. We couldn't prosecute people who did that. With the new legislation that Senator Umberg is carrying, there will be a maximum profit of 50% over the cost for those items. So if somebody who decides to kind of profiteer in a pandemic or epidemic or any other emergency, who jumps into a market to sell items that are in great need by the people, will be limited to no more than increasing their price by no more than 50% of what they paid for those items or what that item cost them to make. So we're very proud to be involved in that legislation, and we look forward to continuing in that process and look forward to having a permanent fix to that issue. So we feel very strongly that Todd's mission in this office is always to protect the citizens of Orange County, the consumers of Orange County, and through the use of this hotline and through our vigorous investigation of the complaints that we get through there. We are happy to be able to protect the people of Orange County and ensure that there is no price gouging and ensure that people are not scammed through fake testing or fake cures that are being offered for sale in Orange County.
If I could, if I just can follow up real quick on a point Leslie made about testing. You may have read that the city of Irvine is going to do drive-through testing for its community on serology tests, which it tests essentially for the antibodies. In other words, have you had the virus? And if you did, then your body would naturally produce antibodies. And I guess part of the problem with it is it has a significant amount of false positives. So there was an article about that in the Orange County Register where the County of Orange was not endorsing it, and the FDA has originally had not certified any serology tests, and now they're just saying anybody can issue or sell a serology test, but you just cannot represent as part of your sale that it has FDA approval. In other words, basically caveat emptor, buyer beware. And my personal philosophy, I kind of feel like the president of the United States, that if there's something out there that it's not going to hurt you by taking it, but it may give you an indication that might help you make some life decisions, I don't have any problem with that. Originally we got complaints about companies selling tests and that they were doing it unlawfully. And I just want you to know, as long as they're not representing that they have FDA approval, they're free to go ahead and market those serology tests.
I've got some questions if you would like to answer them, Todd.
Sure, of course.
All right, we're hearing a lot in the news of tracing. You want to talk about that? We're starting to hear a lot of it in the papers and online, and I think there's a lot of confusion about it, but maybe you could help explain what tracing is and what's going to happen with that in our communities.
Testing and tracing, that's really an idea that the Orange County Healthcare Agency would need to implement, where they keep track of the positive results for COVID-19 and then try to contact all of the people that they may have been in contact with who may have been exposed to COVID-19. So that's not something that the district attorney's office would be involved in necessarily, but it's the public health agencies that would take control of that.
Well, I think where it's becoming an issue, I guess, because it relates to privacy rights. So
Right.
A lot of people seem to be confused. Okay, another question.
Well, let me just address that real quick. I understand that now. What basically the concept is, if you get exposed at let's say you go to a hospital, you're brought into a hospital, your doctor, they're mandatory reporters. So they're required to turn in the fact that you have a positive and that you have the virus to the healthcare agency. And they use that for tracking. Now, they may come and interview you, and they're going to want to know, who have you been in contact with? Because you might have exposed other people. And that's what happened at that party in Pasadena, where apparently a whole set of party goers was infected. And people, rightfully so, are concerned about their invasion of privacy, where they've been, who they associated with, and things like that. So I think that's where the controversy is and what people are concerned about. How much information is the government entitled to? But we don't have anything to do with that. Leslie is correct. If you get an inquiry from the healthcare agency, they're going to have to explain to you and disclose what your privacy rights are before you're required to answer any questions.
Okay, this is a question that is related to COVID-19 because there have been some prisoners released. So would you want to talk about the sex offenders that you've written a lot about this and spoken about this and posted about the sex offenders who've been released in the public and are reoffending due to COVID-19?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I'm glad people are paying attention. I have been trying to bring a lot of attention to this issue. So the courts of California are governed by what is called the Judicial Council, and it is chaired by our Chief Justice. I personally feel very strongly that this whole dialogue about who should be incarcerated, who shouldn't be incarcerated, and this agenda of basically not putting people in custody for either all misdemeanors and what people consider low-level felonies. That social justice agenda started long before this pandemic, but it was led, that discussion was led by the Judicial Council of California. That dialogue resulted in the reforms that were put forward in Senate Bill 10 that ended bail in California. That question is going to be on the ballot in November to put bail back into our system and reverse the state law. However, the Judicial Council passed a whole set of emergency orders during this pandemic to basically free up the population in our jail so that we wouldn't have as many inmates in jail. Sheriff Don Barnes responsibly implemented his ability under state law to release individuals that had 30 days or less on their sentence, and up to 60 days if they had an underlying medical condition. By doing that on his own, under state law, his authority already, he reduced the population of our jail significantly. Our jail population was, at the time of the pandemic in March began, somewhere around 5,000 plus or minus inmates. It is now below 2,500. The population has been reduced to half. What I have been so upset about is our courts have continued to release dangerous felons or not impose the requirement of mandatory 6 months in jail for sex offenders in particular, who have either cut off their GPS tracking system or have failed to charge their battery for one reason. They don't want to be detected by their parole agent where they're living in our communities. I have been involved in sex offender management for years as a state legislator. I was the one that wrote the law that put the sex offender database onto the internet when I was in the legislature and left. We did that bill in 2008. So if you go on the Attorney General website, you can see where sex offenders are living in our community. Many of these sex offenders are homeless, and the only way we know, or parole knows, where they are so that they can track them in order to deter them from reoffending is through their GPS monitor. We had 7 sex offenders who failed to maintain their GPS monitor, and yet our court commissioner, Commissioner Joe Dane, let them out without imposing the mandatory sentence of 180 days. And you better believe I got infuriated about that.
Oh, well, thank you for all the good work that you're doing, and all related to COVID, but there's certainly broader implications, and no bail, et cetera, is contributing to that. I think we have time for maybe one more quick question. Do you want to just talk about, Leslie or Mr. Spitzer, do you want to talk about just fraud in general in Orange County? Is there a lot of fraud in our county, and it's just become more exacerbated because of the COVID crisis? How would you describe it?
I think Leslie would be excellent to answer that question.
I would say that in Orange County, we certainly have a significant amount of fraud. One of the problems is that we have a population that has a lot of means, and therefore is a rich target for scammers to go after. We have a large number of retirees who have saved all their lives and have money available for a scammer to target. So yes, certainly there's plenty of fraud here to keep us fully employed. And we do everything we can to stop it. And of course, the coronavirus adds to that. I would just like to mention that, you know, one of the things we're really keeping an eye on is email phishing scams right now. We're also very concerned about scams that might impact the economic stimulus checks that people are expecting right now. So mail theft certainly is something that we're watching as well. So we would strongly urge people to understand that the government doesn't ask you to click on emails that they send you and provide personal information. So if you get an email asking for that kind of information, it's a scam. Don't respond to it, delete it, and keep yourself safe.
Well, that's very good advice. I want to thank you both, District Attorney Spitzer and Assistant District Attorney Leslie. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon, and we're very grateful. And now I'm going to shift gears to the local side and introduce our own Police Chief, Jon Lewis. Just a quick bio. Many people in the community certainly know Chief Lewis, but it's important to know that he has worked a long time in our community, and he's our 10th police chief, and he became chief of the department in 2016. He's a local guy. He went to Cal State Long Beach and also Chapman with his master's degree, and he's been in Newport Beach on the police force since 1991. So he knows this community inside and out. He serves on leadership positions, not just in our own community, but local, county, and state levels with the Orange County Chiefs and Sheriffs Association and the California Police Chiefs Association. So it's always a pleasure to introduce our police chief. He's particularly now doing so much beyond the normal. Whoever thought that you would be doing all that you're doing now, and your wonderful team of officers and volunteers are doing for our community. So let me turn it right over to our Chief of Police, Jon Lewis.
Well, thank you very much, ma'am. And I can tell you it's a pleasure to be here today, particularly with the company that I'm in today, with two distinguished former mayors, yourself and Mr. Sellich. I'm grateful for all that. I'm going to plug particularly your leadership here, Diane, and everything that we've been doing here. I think it's important for them to know that our city council, our city manager, and our staff have been here 24/7 since the beginning of this pandemic, have been committed to this community in a way that is wholehearted and tireless in terms of their work ethic. And so, ma'am, I know that you've been there with me as we have gone out and day to day to fight for the safety and health of our community. And I just want to tell you how grateful I am for that personally, but also publicly recognize you for your leadership. And it's great to see my friend, the district attorney, who is just an outstanding man, incredible experience and a tremendous supporter of our department in the past and me personally. And I'm just grateful for his friendship, but also for his leadership in the county and also the state and national level. So I'm humbled, frankly, to be here today with this cast, truly remarkable leaders. So I will talk a little bit about what we're seeing in Newport Beach with coronavirus scams. And we haven't had a big problem with it, which is good. We have not seen, we get the reports every once in a while where we're hearing about, perhaps a phone call or something that gives people some concern. But in terms of actual prosecutions and cases that we're working right now, up to this point, we have not seen a significant problem with this. So those are all good things. And so I wanted to touch a little bit. Leslie had touched on kind of in broad strokes what we're the types of things and the scams that are out there that we're dealing with. And I figured I would get a little bit more detail into that. And I think, and Leslie mentioned it, and I also want to point out too, is that when you talk about these folks that are out there peddling cures and treatments, there is no proof that any of this works. Okay. And again, I need to reinforce this, and I'm going to reinforce what Leslie said earlier. There is nothing that has been proven to prevent COVID-19, period. All right. So we need to understand that when people call, if we're approached in email, or you got to look when somebody tells you something like that right now, that's a scam. It is 100% a scam. And to follow on that, anyone that asks you to pay for something with a gift card or a money transfer or Bitcoin, these things they have to raise some red flags for you in your mind, particularly when you're asking to pay for something with gift cards. We pay for gift cards when we go into to legitimate businesses to use those gift cards rather than using a gift card to pay for something outside of the normal way that you would conduct a financial transaction. And again, this is basic stuff, but it bears repeating. We don't ever give our social security number, bank account, credit card numbers to anyone over the phone or to contact you. And if they say they're from the government, there's a number of ways to verify that, and I'll go into that. So one that we have now and that we've seen and also in the past are the IRS. You'll get a phone call about the IRS, claiming that you owe money or needs to be, and it typically goes along with a time demand on that to put the pressure on folks to well-meaning to get whatever it is submitted in a timely fashion. So The IRS is not going to contact you by phone, by email, by text message, or social media, all right, about your stimulus payment or anything like that, all right? The IRS, and we can verify when you're actually going to talk to somebody from the IRS, there are ways to verify it. We can look at the irs.gov/coronavirus is information there straight from the IRS that you can verify anything you hear over the phone. You don't have to pay to get your stimulus money. That's not the way this works. All right. So again, you don't have to pay to get your stimulus money. All right. And the IRS will not tell you that you take your stimulus check and then give them money back. All right. That's not the way it works either. So these are all scams that are out there. That this is kind of a new frontier right now. And these are the types of things that people are falling victim to. Fortunately, we haven't seen that in Newport Beach. You know, there are a lot of online offers for vaccinations that we're not there yet with any of that. So ignore those. And really, District Attorney mentioned it earlier, you know, be wary of ads for these test kits. That's something that there are testing facilities that are out there, but be wary of these ads and do your due diligence in terms of verification on these things. Robocalls, we all get them. They're all annoying. Hang up on them. All right. And just don't feel bad about that. Right now, there's a lot of people that are out there that are looking for using this pandemic as an opportunity to victimize us. So we just need to be careful, and we need to continue to be diligent. And, you know, watch out for emails claiming to be the CDC or the World Health Organization. If you get things from these entities, you can go and look and verify them through other means. And I encourage you to do that. And then when it comes to donations, we will see that from time to time now too. Just be careful and verify who the donations are. Take your time to do it. And I always encourage our folks to. We have a local police department. We have never closed our doors here. We've been running 24/7 as a full service police department. And so when these things cause you concern, call our non-emergency number. It's 949-644-3717. There's someone here 24 hours a day to answer your phone call. We'll send an officer out. If you'd like to speak to the detective, we can call during, you know, your typical business hours. We should have somebody there that we can run these cases by, and just make sure that, particularly when it comes to donations, that we vet it and that it's a legitimate entity that we're doing that donations to, because there are a lot of great organizations out there that need the help, but we just need to make sure we're getting our money to the right ones. So again, don't give out any personal information until you verify the identity of whoever it is that you're calling. It's okay to ask for name, department, business phone number, all those types of things. If you call the police department, anybody is going to provide you with that information, and they're not going to hesitate to do that. So it's important to, if anyone balks at those types of questions, then I think we need to start having some red flags here when it comes to this individual that you're either contacted with by phone, email, or otherwise. Personal information, again, I've touched it a couple times, be guarded on that. And right now, our seniors are more susceptible to being victimized for these types of scams. And so while we're really making an effort to take care of our seniors right now, that many of them are vulnerable to this virus, they can also be vulnerable to fraud. And those that are going to try to victimize them and using this as an opportunity to do so. So we need to be taking care of our seniors. And I know we are now, not just their physical needs, but also needs like this, needs for contact, for being checked in, and making sure that when they could be potentially approached by someone like this, that we're there, we're involved with them, and we can help them vet whatever it is that may kind of come across them through email or phone. So I ran through that stuff really fast, and there's a lot of things that we've been doing here at the police department that I can talk about as well. And I wanted to break here for a moment to answer questions. And I also have some additional stuff to talk about that we've changed in terms of operations of the police department as well. But I figured ma'am, if that's okay with you, I can go to questions now, or I can keep moving.
Well, let me just give you one question, just kind of segue. COVID is certainly our topic, but because of COVID, could you talk in that context about what we're seeing in crime in Newport Beach?
So what we saw initially was we saw our crime numbers compress. At the beginning, when all this was rolling out with the stay-at-home order, we saw our crime numbers compress. We saw people staying at home, and some of the property crimes that we're dealing with are, in a community like ours, the garage burglaries, residential burglaries, burglary, theft from motor vehicle, those things, we saw those numbers begin to compress. Now, what we have seen, particularly in the past 2 weeks, and this last weekend was one of those. Is we're starting to see our numbers trend back, and we're starting to see crime come back. We're starting to see level demands increase on our police department, and I know that's the same for the other police departments in the county right now. So crime really has not taken time off for the pandemic, and frankly, some of the people that are involved in these types of activities, if they're not interested in following the laws as they are the penal code, they're certainly not interested in adhering to stay-at-home orders either. So those are the ones that we're dealing with right now. They are out there, but we're starting to see our service level demands begin to normalize and exceed in some areas as it relates to crime.
Well, and then related to that, because of COVID and all of our beach control issues and access to beach, do you want to just update people so they know what to expect in terms of enforcement, education, and encouragement on our beaches?
There's been a lot of talk about our beaches and what we're doing out there. And what we're trying to do, and we're getting good compliance with, is encouraging folks to comply with the orders as they're written. And we do when we have those conversations with folks. And when we take the time to explain why we're doing this, we generally get compliance from folks. You know, we want the beaches to be active use. Now, can I say that we're getting 100% compliance out there? Well, no, but this is also brand new. I mean, this is brand new to everyone. Brand new to our community, but also brand new to our city in terms of how we're working through these issues that we have on the beach. And what we're really focusing on is the social distancing. That is a key component to this. And we have a partnership with our lifeguards. We're out there and we're educating and we're talking to folks and we're getting good compliance from the people that we talk to, and they understand it. They get it. You know, I don't think that there's some big intent out there to get anyone sick. And so when we point things out to folks, ask that they act responsibly, they typically do. Now, our laws have not changed as it relates to our municipal code sections. So the beach after hours was one that we had some concerns with last weekend. And we've seen the red tide out there is amazing. I was out there before the beach closed myself in an active fashion with my family to see it as well. And so I understand the interest. And I think that there's also a number of things that are just not available right now. I mean, you don't have restaurants or movie theaters or all these different entertainment venues that are open. So the beach has become a attraction for some folks. And I understand how that came to be. However, our beach closes at 10 o'clock. And so we are out there and we're making sure that people understand. And it's always closed at 10 o'clock. That's nothing that's new. That's a longstanding municipal code. So we're encouraging that type of compliance. We also want people to understand is that when it comes to the beach community too, is that we have our residents here that are abiding by the stay-at-home order, and we really want people to be respectful of our neighborhoods, and we want them to be respectful of our neighborhoods at any time. But now I think it's even more important because you have people that are scared. You have people that are trying to stay at home and are focused on their health and their security, their well-being in their homes. And we really like people to stay in their neighborhoods, and that's where all of us really need to be focusing our attention right now. When it comes to the beach, we just ask that people are respectful of our neighbors, of our neighborhoods, and of our active use out of the beaches, because that's what this is really intended to do, and keep the beaches as a way to promote an active and healthy lifestyle. But on the other hand, we also want to provide for community safety as well.
Very good. Well, you said you had some other topics you wanted to include, so please go to your next chapter.
So I will talk real briefly about what we as a police department have done we've had to change up our operations here when we're talking about dealing with COVID-19 and how we run a police department and how we are out there protecting our community in the ways that we've had to do that. We've had to change things a little bit. One of the first things that we did was we closed our front desk, which was, we've never closed the front doors to the front desk during business hours. I mean, this is always something that we've had available for people to come into the police department. At the Newport Beach Police Department, we still answer the phone. If you call the police department, you are going to get a live person that answers, and that's something that we're very proud of. So we've had to scale back in that way, which is something that we don't like to do, because again, we pride ourselves on being responsive and providing personalized service here. But that was one of the first things we've done. We've also emphasized with our officers that we're looking to interact in the open air to the extent that we can. So when typically we would have conversations with perhaps somebody inside their house, we are asking folks to come out and talk to us on the street because again, it works both ways. You know, we have people that are not necessarily comfortable with anybody coming into their house right now. And we also want to make sure that our officers are being protected as well. So we've really emphasized these open air interactions with our folks when we're out there. We've also really pushed our telephonic reporting procedure, so we can call, and there would be times that we may make personal contact for a police report. If we can make those contacts now over the phone, that's something that we're doing. And then we're also using our online report system where you can make the report yourself online. And there's some things that if they're a basic police report type of situation that you can do that, and you can do it effectively, and that information gets to our detectives, and the process gets started. So not as perhaps as personal as it has been in the past for us, but it's just another option that keeps us the ability again to maintain our health and safety, but also for the folks that we're interacting with. So the way we do our business has been a little bit different, and those are just some of the ways that we have been. We also have a jail facility here, and some people sometimes are surprised by that we do have a what's called a Type 1 jail facility in Newport Beach. But we've changed the way we hold prisoners here and really maximize the use of either our cite and release policy if we need to, or use the sheriff's facility in Santa Ana. So we've had to change a little bit the way we do things here in our jail facility, just to maintain the population at a manageable level, and also to make sure that if there are issues there with our in terms of the health of the inmates or the people that are arrested, that we're addressing those as well. So those are a couple of things that we've been doing differently here in Newport Beach, and then I'm happy to answer some questions as it relates, because I know that there's quite a few of them out there, ma'am, and we heard some in council the other night. So I'd love to be able to take a few of those questions here.
Sure. Would you want to talk also about how we're dealing with the homeless situation? That's one question. Please.
We have good news with the homeless situation. So we work with the Illumination Foundation as one of our partners, and we actually ended up putting 5 people over the past couple of days into the hotel options that are available for them now, that we got up off the street and into hotels via the Illumination Foundation. So that's really good. That's really good news for us. It's really good news for those individuals. And so what we have not done is in any way back off on our homeless outreach efforts. All right, we have been out there, and we continue to interact with our folks and try to get them up off the street. And now, if this type of situation that we find ourselves in right now in a pandemic is helpful to incentivize them, and there's additional resources available, we're using all those things, and we're continuing to go out and work with our unsheltered population and hopefully get them into a better place than where many of them are living right now. So we have had our foot on the gas with that the entire time that we're out there, and we're also making sure that if they are and they do need the appropriate medical attention, that we're getting that for them as well.
Well, good. I get comments. I've heard this comment from time to time with construction projects in the city, of which there are many. We see graffiti on the walls of some of these demoed buildings in the process of being demolished. What's the story behind graffiti? And I know it gets removed quickly. I do know that, but how is it happening?
We get it removed quickly. We arrest people too for doing that. And that's, look, there's different kinds of graffiti. There's the gang graffiti, but a lot of it, what we see down here is the tagging, and those individuals, it's a crime, you know, and depending on how much damage it could be a felony. So we track that, we take reports on it, we go out, but we're also proactive with it too, because we know that there are certain areas that are more impacted than others. And we will catch these individuals and we'll arrest them and hold them accountable for that. But we also have a very quick process in terms of getting graffiti removed. And I think that's super important, that when we see this, if we can't catch the individual, that's what we would like to do, number one. But if, you know, for whatever reason we're not there and we're not able to apprehend him at that time, we're able to get that to our general services team, and it's be able to, you know, gone within hours. And that's important too, that it's like it was never there in many cases. They get to it that quickly.
You do. I mean, it is amazing how quickly it's removed. I have another question here on the domestic abuse numbers. What are you seeing about the other related ancillary effects of COVID, of people being confined in their homes, and what's happening inside these homes that concerns you?
Well, I can speak to that in two ways. So first I'll speak for Newport Beach, and that's a number that we've been tracking since the beginning of this. And it was interesting. We looked at April 2020 compared to April 2019, and the numbers were exactly the same as it related to family domestic violence issues and family violence related calls for service and arrest. So we didn't see the uptick this during April, and so far as May goes, we're mid into the month right now. We have not seen substantial increases in that area, but we are paying attention to it right now. Now, that is not necessarily true for other jurisdictions. I know nationally that that's something that we've seen, and intuitively it makes sense. When you have people all now in the same house that otherwise were separated, and you've had incidents of either family violence in the past, that it would unfortunately follow that could be an incident, a concern in the future. So in terms of Newport Beach, we've been staying static on those numbers, but we're monitoring it closely.
Okay. Let me think. I think we've answered all the questions. If the DA is still on the line, I don't know if he's exited, if there's any other comment.
No, I'm still here.
Okay. Is there any comment you would like to make regarding what we've been just talking about?
Well, thank you so much. I do appreciate that. I'm really glad to hear Newport Beach numbers are relatively stable in that environment. Across the county, child abuse reporting was down 40%, and elder abuse reporting was down 60%. And what that tells us, and it's really frustrating for me to say this, but one of the important lessons we're going to learn about this pandemic is that by stay-at-home orders, we forced abusers and victims to be closer together under very stressful situations. So it's not that the number of cases have gone down, it's reporting has gone down because victims have not been able to be in a position where they can get access to a safe place to report. And I'm very, very concerned that once we get past this and the reports catch up, it's really going to be a skyrocketing situation. With respect to burglaries, again, the chief talked about the fact that Newport Beach is starting to see an uptick. We are, when people are ordered to stay at home, burglars are not going to burglarize their homes because most of the burglars are not home invasion robbers. In other words, they don't want to confront somebody inside their home. And when your car's on your driveway or at your open garage, they also don't want to take a chance because people are home. But we have seen a serious uptick in burglaries all over California after the passage of Proposition 47. So we know that now with career burglars not going to state prison anymore, we're seeing our properties being assaulted by the fact that these career burglars are out on the streets. They've been locked in their homes too. I mean, it's kind of ironic, right? They're concerned about their health and safety as well. But as soon as we go back to work, they're going to be hungry for our property. And that means you got to lock your doors and set your alarms. So go back and exercise the good practices that you did before this pandemic.
What other kinds of issues that are concerning you, keep you up at night, Mr. DA? And then I'll ask the same to Mr. Police Chief. Go ahead.
I wish I was a good sleeper. Everything keeps me up at night, unfortunately, because I do worry about the safety of our community. I am concerned about the direction this nation is going. I'm very concerned about the direction of the state of California. There have been many reforms that have been passed in the last several election cycles that have the ability to threaten our quality of life. And one of the things I think a great lesson from this pandemic, I think I said this in my opening comments, is that Orange County is worth fighting for. Our freedoms, our quality of life, our respect of property, our respect of jobs, just the fact that we're different. I mean, you can just tell by the way Los Angeles, in contrast, has treated this pandemic. I'm glad we are not that jurisdiction, and I don't want to see us go in that direction. So I think my hat's off to the police chief, his staff and others. And I would just say as part of my last comments as we're closing up, You know, our hearts go out to the Newport Beach Police Department. Their loss of Detective Jarema. What a sad, sad loss to have a life taken at such a young age, leaving children and a wife. I thought the tribute, Chief, that you did to your detective and the city was noble, caring, sincere, and amazing. And I just want to offer all of our blessings to you and the great city of Newport Beach for all the great work you do, and the city council and the chamber, Speak Up Newport, to keep all of us safe. So thank you for allowing Assistant District Attorney Leslie Young and I to participate. We're very, very grateful for this opportunity.
We are tremendously grateful too. It's just a great opportunity to hear from our residents. Chief, do you want to comment, just some closing comments as well?
But first, I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Mr. District Attorney, for your heartfelt comments, sincerely. And I will pass those along to our team as well. And Diane, to go back to your comment about what keeps me up at night, and District Attorney talked about it earlier, was the underreporting, because I believe that there is some underreporting right now. I don't think that we're seeing the full picture of crime right now. And so I am concerned that as we move forward here, that not just the underreporting is that we've never been in this environment before, and nobody really knows what this is going to look like as we go forward over these next couple of months. But I know that there are a number of risk factors and red flags for us in this business, and the District Attorney touched on a number of them that give us pause as we go forward. And so I am concerned about crime. I'm concerned about our victimization, and I'm concerned about, frankly, the demands that are going to be placed on law enforcement and our friends at the District Attorney's Office going forward. I think we have a heavy lift coming ahead of us right now, unfortunately, is the way I look at it. And so I think that what we need to really focus on are the ways that we as a community can help ourselves. And we cannot let our guard down. We have to make sure that we are being good neighbors to each other right now, looking out for each other and taking care of each other and coming together as a community, because that is incredibly important right now. I think that everybody has their opinions about what government should or should not be doing right now. And I respect all of them. And I know good people on both sides of this discussion right now, and they all feel very strongly about it. But one thing that I would really appreciate is that we have to understand is that we are community, all right? And that we need to be there for each other as we go forward. And I think it's going to be incredibly important here in these next couple of months as we sort our way through this. So I would just offer that. And again, thank you for your support. And Mr. District Attorney, thank you for your support as we move forward through this. I know that you will continue to be there for us.
Steve, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I feel so safe with the leadership we have in the DA's office and in our own police department. It's really been an amazing hour of good discussion. I'm going to now pass this back to Ed Selledge for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Diane. Todd and Leslie, thank you so much for participating. We really appreciate all the hard work you do for our county and protecting Newport Beach. And
So
Chief,
welcome.
we appreciate all the work you do for our community also. Diane, thanks for acting as moderator today. And we really are lucky to have such terrific public servants as you guys to help serve our community and help protect Newport Beach. So everyone, please plan on joining us on June 10th for our next webinar in this series. Our topic and speakers have yet to be determined, but you can be sure it will be one of civic interest. Please watch for our announcements on the program and how to register. Until then, stay safe and stay sheltered. Good afternoon.